What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Weir, and these are my least favorite movies from the year 2020. That's right, in a year where we had so little actually released, there were movies that they were able to release that were absolute dumpster fires. And can you blame them? This is the year to do it. I mean, if you're going to make a quick buck on something, you might as well make it when the big movies can't come out. So they released these movies. But it didn't get past me. That's right. I was able to watch some of these movies. I don't have a full 10. I'll be honest with you guys. Neither list had a top 10 this year. It was a rough year for actually getting to watch movies. Although there was a reviewer I watched earlier who had like 15, 20 movies on there. And they were all like these indie budget horrible movies I wouldn't even consider watching. So I'll be completely honest with you. These are mainstream movies. These are movies that came out this year. A lot of them hit theaters or they went straight to VOD because they were just like, you know what, put it out there. So we've got to talk about the worst movies this year, and let's do it. The first movie on this list, guys, is Hubie Halloween. Now, Hubie Halloween was made by Adam Sandler, and to his credit, he said after Uncut Gems came out and the critics kind of snubbed him for his amazing, incredible role in Uncut Gems, he said, you know what, I'm going to make the worst movie of all time. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to say that Hubie Halloween is the worst movie of all time, but it's one of the worst movies of all time. From his terrible accent to just the overall plot, it took some of the classic Sandler moments and almost made it a workable movie, but it wasn't. It was just bad. Next up on this list, guys, we have the movie The Devil All the Time. Now, The Devil All the Time is a movie that stars Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland. So right off the bat, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this a shot. Yikes. This movie takes the idea of making a 3-hour movie and makes me never want to watch a 3-hour movie ever again. It felt like 9 hours total while watching this movie. It was just bad. This movie was not fun. It was dark, and then it never let up on how dark it could be. I feel like somebody was like, hey, we should make a movie about how life sucks. And so he was like, oh, that's a good idea. And then it'll have like this redemptive arc at the end. And, you know, it'll... No. Just dark. And that was this movie. Now, if that's your cup of tea, go for it. But it wasn't for me, and it had to go on this list. So let's move on to the next movie. Next up, guys, we have a movie that its biggest sin is, honestly, it's CGI. In a year where you had time to take a movie and craft it however you needed, this movie, they were just like, you know what, put it out there. We don't care if the CGI looks terrible. And that is the movie Bloodshot. Now, Bloodshot is a movie starring Vin Diesel, and so automatically I was like, okay, you have my attention. And it's about Vin Diesel who gets his mind erased after every mission. And so every time, and I was like, man, this is cool. And Guy Pearce was in it. I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. It was not cool, and it was not awesome, and the CGI was absolutely terrible. Next up, guys, we have Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Now, I would go on about how terrible this movie is, but I just read you the title of this movie. You know how terrible it is. Let's move on. Next up, guys, we have the movie The Grudge. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. The top 3 are horror movies. And I say this every year. It is easy to put horror movies on your top 10 list because it's easy. Horror movies either work or they don't. And The Grudge is one that just doesn't. They shouldn't have touched it. They should have left well enough alone. They brought back The Grudge. They rebooted it, and they're like, we're going to do something different. And actually, they did a good job for the first act, but then after that, it just gets worse and gets worse and gets worse. And by the end of the movie, it's the same old trope where you can't actually eradicate the evil. And it's just annoying. I feel like I wasted my time. I feel like cheering on the hero of the story just was a waste of my time because at the end of the day, there was nothing the hero could actually do to be safe from this demon. Next up, guys, we have the movie The Turning. That's right, it is 2020's version of The Turning of the Screw, which, to be completely honest with you, was done again in 2020 in The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix, and it was done perfectly. I loved the story. Haunting of Bly Manor was one of those gems we got this year. It was different from the original The Haunting series that came out on Netflix, and it was done right. The point I'm trying to make is that The Turning that came out this year was absolutely awful. It was a bad telling of the story. It was a bad reimagining of the story. The Turning was just bad. All right, guys, that leads me to my final worst movie from the year 2020. And the worst movie of the year is Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island is a movie that when I got done watching, I said, that's the worst movie I've seen this year. And then I watched The Turning, and I was like, one of those is the worst movie this year. Honestly, I watched them like back to back, and I was like, okay, one of those is the worst. And I got all the way through 2020, all the way to the end, and I have to say that the Fantasy Island is just awful. I mean, there's so many loopholes and things that they do in this movie that are just bad. Characters turning on each other at the last second for no reason. One character gets its fantasy fulfilled while the other character doesn't. It just doesn't make sense. The whole movie is just somebody took all these ideas and just shoved them into one script, and they're like, let's just run with everything. And it doesn't matter if it makes sense. It was a movie that could have worked, but it didn't. It was just trash. Fantasy Island is the worst movie from the year 2020. And guys, those are the worst movies that I think were made in the year 2020. If you enjoyed this list, make sure you hit the like button and the share button. Maybe you've got a list. Maybe you saw some movies this year and you're like, you know what? Those were terrible movies. And you want to share your list? Well, share those in the comment section down below. Let me know what your least favorite movies were this year. I'd love to go back and forth with you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.